Are you allowed to contribute to an IRA if you've already contributed to your 401k for this year? Hi, I'm Garrett Ray, financial planner here at the Wealth Guardians and the Ray Financial Group.
And I'm Brice Payne, and you've entered The Vault, the Wealth Guardians video series on all things pertaining to retirement planning. In this episode, we're going to talk about the common myths and misconceptions about IRAs and 401ks. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons if you say to yourself, boy, I wish I could catch every episode of The Vault with Doug, Garrett, and Brice, because all you have to do is click on those, and then you will be reminded when we put out the next one. So in this episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about IRAs, 401ks, and the misconceptions. Let's go ahead and get started on this, Garrett. What's the first one that we've got?
Yeah, so Brice, can you contribute to both your 401k and your traditional IRA in the same year?
Yeah, that is a common misconception. A lot of people will think, oh, I contributed to my 401k this year. I'm not allowed to contribute to my IRA. Well,
maxed out my 401k.
You maxed it out, or you didn't max it out. You think you contributed to it, and therefore you're not allowed to contribute to your IRA. Pretty common misconception there. Yep. And the answer is false. Nope, you are allowed, under most cases, to contribute to both. It all comes down to your modified adjusted gross income and what your total wages were and how much you may have contributed to your 401k. So yes, it is technically possible to max out your 401k earnings, and you made so much money that you are not allowed to make pre-tax contributions to your IRA, which is the whole reason that an IRA exists. But you can always contribute to your IRA even if you maxed out your 401k and your modified adjusted gross income doesn't allow you to make pre-tax contributions. You can make after-tax contributions. It's a whole different discussion on whether or not that's a good idea or not, but you can technically do it. So please don't think that, oh, I can't contribute to my IRA because I maxed out my 401k. Nope, you probably still do have that option available to you, but that's a lot longer discussion that we're going to go into here for the sake of this episode. So that's the first one. There you go. You can contribute to both.
All right. So next myth we have coming up here, Brice, we hear this sometimes when we're talking to families, when we're talking to younger adults. Hey, I'm too young to start saving for retirement.
Yeah.
I'm 25.
I don't need to worry about that. I'll worry about that once the kids are gone, or once I've got the mortgage paid off, or once I've got that upper tier of my job. I'm just a grunt working right now. Don't need to worry about it. So that is a very common misconception. And here we're going to pull up a graph and show you this. We've got three people here on this graph.
Okay.
And let's first take a look at Susan. She's the dotted line there in the middle. And Susan invests $5,000 annually between the age of 25 and 35. That's her only investment. She stops contributing at 35. If we're assuming a 7% annual rate of return compounded annually, Susan's amount will grow to $602,070 by the time she reaches 65 for only a $50,000 investment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's not bad. All right. But let's take a look at Bill. Bill doesn't do quite the same thing. Bill invests $5,000 annually between the ages of 35 and 65. So he did it also, but he started 10 years later. Look at that. He contributed $150,000, but what does he have to show for it?
Yeah.
$540,000.
Much less.
Interesting.
And he contributed 3 times more.
Interesting. All right. Now let's look at the real winner in this scenario. This is Chris. And Chris invested $5,000 annually between the ages of 25 all the way up to 65. So his total investment was $200,000. But what does his net worth become? $1.142 million by the age of 65.
Yeah.
What did Einstein refer to the compounding interest as?
The 8th wonder of the world.
There you go.
Yeah.
8th wonder of the world. So the longer your money sits in there, the more time it has to grow. And basically in the later years, it's as if you were making the contributions just via the compound interest itself.
Exactly. Consistency is key, and time in the market is always going to be timing the market.
Which we can't always do well, right?
Do well, right? Because no one's got that crystal ball.
So just dollar cost average.
That's right. and get started young and early.
Yeah.
The way.
Otherwise, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard. The later you get started, the more you're going to have to work hard. That's kind of like compounding of how hard you have to work to make the savings there. Okay, so that's the second one. I'm too young to start saving for retirement. Absolutely not. Even Einstein himself would say absolutely not. So let's put that one aside. Do we have a third one?
We do. So Brice, going on the other side of the spectrum, we hear this sometimes. I'm too old to open up an IRA or a 401k. What are your thoughts on that?
Technically speaking, the answer is no. You are never too old to open up a 401k or an IRA.
There is a stipulation.
Yeah, there are. To contribute to your IRA or 401k, you have to have earned income.
Right.
If it's going to be a 401k, obviously your employer has to have an employer-sponsored plan, but that's why IRAs exist if they don't. But you could be 100 years old and open up an IRA and contribute to it as long as you have earned income reported that year. Yeah. Right. Now, is that always going to make sense? Maybe at that stage of the game, you're on Social Security, your earned income is not that much, and you're only going to be turning around and taking RMDs out of the account that same year or the next year. So we're not saying that always makes sense to do that, but technically speaking, yes, you're never too old to contribute to an IRA or 401k as long as you have the proper earned income for it.
Absolutely.
So that's the third one.
All right, Brice.
Let's keep going.
Here's another one we hear sometimes. 401k and IRA returns are guaranteed.
This is a really interesting misconception that a lot of people have out there. You and I have seen this happen many times where somebody comes into us, they're going through the planning process. Maybe they're 60 years old. They've invested in their IRAs or their 401ks for quite some time, and they ask a question something along the lines of this. What are IRAs paying these days?
Yeah.
Well, we cannot confuse the conception of the registration of the account, meaning 401k or IRA or Roth or brokerage account, with the investments that are inside the account. If it's a 401k, IRA, or Roth or brokerage account, all that name is doing is telling Uncle Sam how he can and cannot tax the monies inside that account.
Right.
That has nothing to do with what kind of returns you're going to see in the account. You are the one that determines what are the investments inside it. Whether it's an IRA or a Roth or a brokerage account, you might have stocks, you might have mutual funds, you might have ETFs. You can have anything inside there. That's what's
a mixture of all.
Or a mixture of all, right.
Yep.
Properly diversified portfolio. But that is what's going to determine what your IRA is paying, not the fact that it's called an IRA. So please put that aside. Understand that there's two different concepts there, what the registration of the account is and what are the investments inside the account. The investments inside the account are what's going to determine what IRAs are paying in these days. That's a question more appropriate for a CD or a savings account or a money market.
Right.
That is kind of a universal answer. Oh, CDs are paying 4.5% more or less these days.
Right.
But
exactly.
What a bond is paying and what a stock is paying, two entirely different things.
Absolutely. Brice, I got another one for you. Sometimes we hear this. I can only invest in stocks within a 401k or an IRA. Nothing else available.
Yeah. Well, so 401ks, if I had one bone to pick with 401ks or employer-sponsored plans, it is that they are notoriously limited on what your investments can be inside them. Most 401ks are going to allow you to pick out of maybe 20 mutual funds or so, something like that. Maybe there's some ETFs in there. And once in a while, company stock. If the company is a publicly traded company, maybe you've got the opportunity to buy some company stock in there. But there are a plethora of different types of investments out there. Besides mutual funds and company stock and ETFs, there's all the millions of other companies out there that you can buy. Maybe it's millions, but hundreds of thousands of companies out there that you could buy that are publicly traded. There's bonds. There's real estate, precious metals, options,
limited partnerships.
Yeah. Now we've got cryptocurrency is a big one that everybody wants to know about. So once you have your money in an IRA and it's no longer in a 401k, then you've got the world of investment options available to you. But yes, in 401ks, you're going to be somewhat limited as to what you can invest in. There's not much you can do about it.
Yep. All right, last myth we got coming up here, Brice. We hear this one sometimes. I can't touch my money inside my 401k until retirement.
This is probably, out of all of these, I would say that's probably the most common misconception or myth out there.
Yeah.
People are not, they think that, oh, I can't touch my 401k until I retire. Not true. You can touch your 401k under, or any employer-sponsored plan, under two circumstances. One, if you have left that company, doesn't mean you have to retire altogether. You can leave that company and move to another company, and now that 401k is available to you to either take distributions from if you want or need to, or roll it over to an IRA or a Roth account. So there, you can access your monies that way. Or if you turn 59 and a half, and that's the one that people a lot of times don't know about. In fact, we've even got the football jerseys that we wear on our radio show video. By the way, you can go ahead and find our radio show out there as well. And our jerseys have the number 59 and a half on them to remind people that there is a certain magical thing that happens in the world of retirement planning when you turn 59 and a half. And that is that you are now eligible, in most cases, to do an in-service rollover. So even you're still working for your company, been working with them for 20 years, still plan on not retiring until 65, but you turn 59 and a half, you are, in most cases, allowed to do an in-service rollover that allows you to take the current balance of your 401k, or some portion of that current balance, and move it over to an IRA. That does not upset your future contributions to your 401k. It still exists and all that. But the money that you moved over to an IRA, well, you can take distributions from that if you want to. Again, you don't usually want to do that if you can avoid it, but now you've got that whole other world of investment options available to you. Be aware that there is that 10% penalty if you do touch your monies before you're 59 and a half. In most cases, you're going to pay a 10% penalty on that, because the whole idea behind an IRA or a Roth was that you were supposed to save that until you were 59 and a half. A couple of examples, exceptions to that might be that you are 55 and you retired altogether. Then you can touch your money from your current 401k, not your IRA, but what we've done an episode on the age 55 rule. There's a link for that one right there. So if that intrigues you, go ahead and check out that link. But that's 155 and a half. If you're buying a home for the first time, I think that's an exception.
One-time exception for the first time.
If you had health costs that were exceeding a certain percentage of your pay, you can touch your retirement monies then. But in most cases, if you touch your money, meaning take a distribution from it, put it into your checking account before you're 59 and a half,
you're going to get smacked on the hand. You can always do it, but you got to pay the 10%.
Right. You can always do it. Yep. There you go. So that's another very common misconception, is that you're not allowed to touch the monies until you retire. So that's not true. Any other ones out there, Garrett? Did we?
No, Brice.
That's the list.
Those are the 5 to 6 myths we tend to hear the most often, and just wanted to get this out to the listeners so that you guys are aware of what is true about limitations on 401ks and what may be a myth.
Don't believe everything you read out there on the internet.
That's right.
There's some misleading stuff out there in some dark corners somewhere. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Vault. As always, you see those like and subscribe buttons down there. If you say to yourself, I want to make sure I catch all the future episodes of The Vault with Doug, Garrett, and myself, then go ahead and click on those. Other than that, I'm Brice Payne.
I'm Garrett Ray.
And this has been The Vault.